All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back once again to our AI is the New BI demo series. My name is Eric Cavanaugh. Today I'm going to be talking to Jay Wilder of Datorama. This is a very cool platform. It's a marketing intelligence platform, and what it does is it really allows the marketer to synthesize all kinds of great insights from many different data sets. So you think about the MarTech 7,000, I think it is these days, 7,000 different marketing technology automation companies out there. That's a lot of data. It's a lot of different models. We need some way to synthesize all that, and that's what Datorama does, and it uses AI in multiple components of what it delivers. So with that, Jay Wilder, take it away. Show us what you got.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Great to be with you all here today to talk to you about Datorama and how we use AI on a day-to-day basis to make our lives easier and put us in control of what we want to get done in terms of driving our business goals. So I think that was a great introduction, Eric. Datorama is a marketing intelligence platform synthesizing data, insights, KPIs, metrics, all the things that we need on a day-to-day basis to get the full picture of what's going on in our marketing, you know, from zooming out to the KPI level down to very, very granular insights of what we can change, course correct, double down. As Eric mentioned, we've been using AI pervasively throughout the platform since we started several years ago. And we really found it to be an effective lever to put marketers in control of all the different stages and steps that they need to get their data together, from taking all this data from all the different places that it lives, getting it integrated automatically in a very user-friendly way that you or I as a marketer can handle ourselves, getting all that data organized into KPIs and classifications and the ways that we want to slice and dice it, and then all the way through our day-to-day of interacting with that, from using AI to actually design dashboards for us with a degree of expertise, right out of the box, even visualizing that information in terms of the design, as well as looking at insights within our data across all these different millions and billions of data points to tell us what actually matters now in the moment that we could change. Really, ultimately, what this is all about is, getting all the data together, but also getting the teams together, the partners together, everybody working from the same sheet of music, so to speak, so that, the smallest tactical KPIs all lead up and all add up to the big business KPIs that we need to be focusing on, which today is really embodied by growth, right? Marketing as an engine for growth. So with that, let's hop into the platform and we'll take a look at AI in action. So the first place that I'm going to start with us today is taking a look at some of the dashboards that our users use on a day-to-day basis. We'll look at a digital marketing dashboard. We'll look at a media-specific dashboard. There's lots of other ones we could look at as well, B2B, e-commerce, and so forth. But we'll just take a look at a couple of examples. And what I'll do here is point out how AI first is working behind the scenes and then how it's working sort of front and center to help us make smarter decisions off our data. So this is a digital marketing dashboard, and typically how you like to put these together is to have your high-level KPIs as expressed through goals, so you can see how are we doing with our paid programs, how are we doing with our website and our earned sites, our mobile apps and so forth, how are we doing in terms of our earned media as well, how does that all come through in terms of our sales, share of voice, brand health metrics, and so forth. And then typically you go, deeper and deeper in the data as you go to get answers. So you can start looking at trending information. What are we spending on? What are we getting in terms of returns? Breaking things down by geographies, product lines, all the way then down into more granular insights. And on the bottom left here, we see an example of a Genius insight. And Datorama Genius is one of the AI features that we're going to look at today that helps us actually kind of go beyond the dashboard to uncover insights that we could act on in the moment to take control of KPIs that we're responsible for. But at a high level here, before kind of diving into the details, AI is actually playing a really fundamental role in just getting all of this data together as well. And so we'll spend some time looking at the back end of the engine as well. How do we actually get this data integrated in a really seamless, easy way? How do we make it so that, if we want to slice and dice by region like this, or we want to look at it by products or campaigns, AI can actually help us organize all that information as well. And then if we shift over to another view, you can kind of see, in action what I was talking about before, all these different teams, all these different KPIs working together. A digital marketer has a wider purview of looking at all programs and tactics, paid or otherwise, how that impacts what's going on the web and mobile and sales and brand health. A media manager takes a more focused and deeper view on things within the paid aspects of the marketing team. And so here you might see, more granular metrics, specifically to the advertising and the sponsorships. You get into specific channel views and so forth. And again, this, behind the scenes, bringing all this data together in a way that is continuous and seamless, where we can see everything kind of lining up together across all the different channels. This is all actually being facilitated by AI in the background. And for us as a user on the marketing side, it's nice for us to just be able to take it for granted that it's all here. But it's really critical that all the information is at our fingertips that we need. And again, we see more genius insights coming in as well. So that's kind of just a starting point from the business user experience in Datorama, looking at some of the ways that we bring all this data together within a dashboard experience for reporting, optimization, kind of going through the different levels of the data. Let's take now a look at Datorama Genius in particular. So Datorama Genius is a feature set that we've released in the last year. It's been very popular with our customers. And it really kind of answers one of these fundamental speed challenges, as well as transparency challenges that we have within marketing today. It's very, very easy to get into looking at data holistically or with an optimization kind of standpoint, too infrequently, whether it's we're looking at it a couple times a month or we're, doing post-campaign reporting and kind of seeing what happened in the rear view. All the marketers that I speak with are all looking for a way to get into a more daily relationship, a more weekly relationship with the things that they can change for better or worse across everything that they're doing. And so what Genius does is it uses AI to look at all the data that you have in Datorama, all the different ways that it's classified and put together, and say for a KPI like conversion rate, what is actually driving that conversion rate that we have today up or down? And conversion rate is an example, right? It could be ROI, it could be engagement rates, it could be download rates, whatever the KPI that's important for you. But if we take conversion rate as an example, what we can see with Genius is that it's actually gone through all the data that we have, and it presents to us a list here of 10 different insights that are kind of most important for us to look at now. We see aspects of creative concepts and audiences performing not so well in this case in the first card here, 60% below average for that combination. We see other creative concepts that maybe we can improve. We see audiences in different times of day, different types of platforms, right, and so forth. What this does is it gives us sort of a shortcut to the optimization paths that we can take. And at a high level, I can take a look at, this creative concept for family video and the audience for 24 to 35-year-olds and kind of clearly see that we're trending underneath what is typical for the campaigns that we're running. I can see that it's now responsible right now for about 6% of our impressions within the mix today. And if I want to start getting some ideas of, how do I actually maybe do a better job in this area, I can just click through and I can see how this combination is doing against many other combinations that we have running right now. There's lots of different ways I can sort of isolate this if I just want to look at the creative or just want to look at the audience. But, I think what's really cool about this is, I can quickly then go to view alternatives to see, for this creative concept of family video, or this audience, what actually works across everything that we're doing. And here we can see that the family video, doesn't really work that well for this audience. The one creative that we have that's more of a nature-based theme actually does really, really great for our 24 to 35-year-olds. So that would be a really quick, easy optimization that we can make internally or with our agency team or partner. We get a real nice shortcut to what we have to get done. So we're not leaving opportunity on the table. At the same rate, that family video doesn't mean that, because it performed not so well with that audience that we need to cut that entirely. If we look at that video here, we can see that while it's the worst performing piece of creative or content for our younger audience, it's actually our best performing content for 35 to 44-year-olds. And so we can be really, really nimble, really, really surgical with the ways that we make changes. And what would be hard about this on a day-to-day basis, not using AI to do this, is you literally have to go through tables and tables and tables of all the different permutations of looking at creative versus audience versus device versus campaign versus channel and so forth, which literally leads to millions of permutations of things that you could change. And this is one of those areas where AI helps us not only be more efficient, but also more effective, right? So we can be optimizing more frequently and focusing in on the signals that matter. And I think one of the analogies for this type of insight generation is a good one, and I'll share it with you. Typically, when we hear about AI insights, it's sort of about finding the needle in the haystack, if you will. And really, the sort of more accurate challenge that we have as marketers is finding the right needle within a stack of many different needles. And that's what Genius is really all about, is surfacing these insights that have a high degree of significance in terms of how they impact the KPI that we're trying to improve. And that's really what makes it, something that we can use on a day-to-day basis. So we've looked at, go ahead, Eric.
Can you share any insight on which kinds of algorithms you're looking at? Because this is very interesting stuff. I'm guessing that what it's doing underneath the covers is looking for example, disparity, like which is what a k-means does, or is it random forest? Is it? Can you share any of that information? Decision tree. What kind of algorithms are running, and what are they doing?
Yeah, so there is random forest in there. There is decision tree. There's a couple other things that are kind of proprietary in terms of what we do. But essentially, what's kind of going on behind the scenes is, Genius is looking at this particular KPI. It's looking at all of the different elements of the marketing that are related to it. It runs a bunch of different predictive tests to understand which elements of the marketing actually drive this versus another. It runs a whole bunch of those different predictions against each other to see which ones actually have a higher degree of significance. It assigns, some scoring to that behind the scenes, and then, presents this as a kind of an easy-to-follow format for the marketer, which, it's sort of like a feed of insights, right? It's kind of like a social feed that we see, in our daily lives with something that's very visual, very descriptive, very easy to follow. But it's doing a whole bunch of those operations in the background, which for most marketers, they may not know how to do that stuff, on their own, but it's something that a machine can help them do and sort of take control. And what's interesting about this, Eric, too, is even for analysts that are comfortable with deeper advanced analytics, this becomes another way that they can move faster, support more teams, get more out of the headcount that they have on the team, and apply their more sophisticated resources to deeper level questions that may mandate a more manual approach.
Yeah, that's great. It's a dynamic list of to-do items, basically, that I'm guessing learns over time as well, right? Does Genius also track the behavior of the user such that it learns what matters to this user versus that user?
It does. So it pays attention to the things that you interact with. I also have the opportunity here to hide different insights, whether like holistically here or specific aspects of it. So for instance, let's say, I don't have anything to do with creative, or I have no control over that, something like that. I may want to tell Genius that, creative insights are not as important for my role. They may be significant for somebody else, but I'd like less of that in my mix when you present these insights to me. So it also pays attention to that direct user feedback, much in the same way that, we're all used to as we interact with things like Netflix and Spotify and, tell the system what we think is good and what's not.
That's great.
So that's so we've just looked at sort of two aspects of AI, loosely looking at the dashboards in terms of how all that data comes together. We're about to go in to see how that actually transpires. We just looked at Genius going beyond the dashboard with AI to get to the right optimization paths. The next section I want to focus on is going behind the scenes. So when you look at those dashboards and you see the data coming in from search and social and display, and you're getting all this standardized information by geography and channel and campaign or creative concepts, how does that actually happen? That's been a really, really challenging fundamental problem for marketers because, we're not typically, as adept in creating a data warehouse or SQL coding. We really look for solutions that sort of mold around our skill sets, which is doing good marketing, and looking for ways to sort of automate the heavy lifting so we can focus on what's most important, which is improving our performance. So on the back end of Datorama, we take a sort of multi-pronged approach to first data integration. We have lots and lots of different ways to connect the data via APIs. These are all examples that you see here. I'm sure many of you here on the call today or watching the video, have these in your marketing stack, right? And probably many other ones that maybe you're not here as well. You may have lots of different internal data sources that you need to bring in too. This is a really great way to access information very quickly. You can just type in your credentials, get the data from the last 30, 60, 90 days, right? And it starts flowing in on the cadence that you want, daily, hourly, twice a day, whatever it may be. But what we find out in the market is, like you mentioned, Eric, I think, Scott Brinker at the MarTech conference last week talked about the fact that we've now gone from 5,000 marketing technology tools just last year to 7,000, and that's up from 150 just, like 5 years ago. So there's all these different tool sets at our disposal to execute and engage and operate on a day-to-day basis. How do we get all that information in? How do we test and learn whatever we want to use at the moment? What do we do about systems that don't have APIs? What if the API doesn't have the information I want? There has to be a way to also make the non-API way to get data in really, really simple. And the way that we handle that is through Total Connect. And Total Connect is a machine learning-based system that uses AI that allows us to go in and take any reporting files that we have or reporting feeds, things like Excel, CSVs, JSON feeds, even PDFs, drop it into Datorama, and the system will automatically look at it like an eye with lots of intelligence, see many, many different files from thousands and thousands of marketers just like you, and it can determine what that file is, where it came from, and most importantly, how it is mapped in with all the other data so that you can very quickly and very easily look at those dashboards and those insights that we just had a look at previously. So if I look at how Total Connect works, I've got this really simple interface here where I can go in and grab, let's say my latest marketing data file. It's going to go ahead and look at this information. It's actually already determined that this is a data stream from an ads platform. There's many other different platforms, right, that you have in your stack, right, that Total Connect is waiting for as well. But let's say we'll just call this our non-API, data source. Right, and we're going to go ahead and just click Next. And behind the scenes, what's happening is it's looked at that file that it's never seen before, and it's come up with the right mapping of how this needs to integrate and work with all the other data that we have. Yeah, so
that's great. I mean, because that's one of the hardest parts, right, is you're dealing with a varied topology, and to manually try to map fields across is always very time-intensive and error-prone, right? So what you're doing is greasing the tracks for being able to load new data sets and have them align, at least to a significant degree, your existing data, right?
That's right. I mean, in the real world, there exists a marketing taxonomy, right, that sort of describes what we're doing. Everything from our business unit classifications down to creative unit classifications, and all the way down to audiences and segments. There's ways that we think and classify our data day to day. The problem is when it's, pushed across 20, 30, or 50, or 100 different data sources, it all comes back in varying language, right? Varying classification. So the machine learning, by looking at all the different ways that marketers bring in data, where they bring it from, how they connect it together, learns and learns over time to, sort of play the role of, the architect, right, of how does this all need to fit together? Is this display data? Okay, let's put it with the other display data so we can aggregate it up, we can break it down, we can run insights in a consistent way across it. And we can put it together with all the digital data we have that's next to all the offline data that we have that all feeds into the web and the CRM and the sales. And, this is one of the big areas where, projects to get marketing's data and marketing's teams all together. It's one of the biggest risk areas that are out there because it's so complex and it's changing all the time. And, for marketers to take control of this is really wonderful because, we're really the ones that understand what all this nomenclature means. And a lot of times, when you go outside the marketing department to build something like this manually, it becomes sort of very rigid. It becomes very difficult to put into a project scope. It changes a lot. And, you sort of have to evolve it over time as the market evolves as well. So this is a really fundamental sort of back-end task that AI marketing intelligence is helping marketers with in terms of taking control.
Yeah, and just so I understand, I'm guessing that under the covers, again, what Genius is doing is learning about all these different data formats such that it can help you weave them into the bigger mosaic of your big picture, if you will. One thing I'm kind of wondering is it able to track over time how certain data formats change? So you have these connectors to, let's say, Salesforce. Well, Salesforce makes changes. How does Genius update itself when APIs change or when the structure of data sets change? And when that happens, is there some dynamic way for it to then recommend a fix to anyone else who's using Salesforce? How does that work?
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, the API connections, the reporting outputs are always changing. I think last year we updated our Facebook API 25 times, right, almost twice a month. And so, any of the API stuff, that's really, we have a large organization that sort of keeps on that tab. But, on the Genius side of things, every time it's going in and looking at, insight opportunities, it's literally looking at the data from a fresh perspective. And that's kind of the magic of it is it's, looking at your data as it exists right now in this moment and then coming back in 60 seconds with, here's your top 10 things you can do, which can, to your point, could be different, right, than what you saw last week because there may be, a new view-through metric, right, that just got introduced into a platform that you use. You want to take advantage of it. Great. Let's start looking at it right away. We've got a week's worth of data, with this data in the system. Let's start getting some insights on it right away. So it's constantly evolving, right? And that's, I'm saying at a high level, Eric, is, the AI machine learning, and when you talk about marketers' control, that's kind of the whole story, right? It's never about just getting a fixed solution done for now. It's, how do we solve today, but have the agility to solve for what we can't see around the corner for, right?
Right,
so.
and to me, you guys have attacked such a rich space. You're addressing such a dynamic marketplace because of the MarTech 7000, because there are so many tools out there. And to your point, to create manually connections between these different environments is just a fool's errand. I mean, you're going to frustrate yourself within the first couple of projects, and then they're going to break. So what you really want is to have this very flexible, dynamic mesh that kind of holds all this stuff together, and that's what you provided with Datorama fueled with AI, right?
Yeah, and it's across the whole platform, right? So the ability to connect whatever data you need, today, tomorrow, next week, next year, whatever that, might be the MarTech 9000 next year, we'll see, right? And then at the dashboard and the analytics level, activation, for a marketer to be able to go in there and say, I need to see it this way, right? I just got a new ad hoc question from, our management team of, what's the impact of our, SEO or social organic, right? I need to actually look at that data in a way that we haven't to date. Is that something I can do today, right? Or is that something that has to become a big project? As a marketer, you want to do that now, right? You want to be able to add that to your dashboard or run Genius on that right away because that's the speed that you have to operate on. It's kind of expected that you should and could be able to operate at that. But but it does take some smart technology, in conjunction with the marketer to actually get that done.
Yeah, that's
so.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple other things just to round it out. Those were a couple of the big areas that we began with, and we're continuing to always get smarter. A couple new things that we brought into the mix as well. Light Connect is a new one that uses AI. So one of the things that's also come up over the last year, I would say 6 months for sure, is this mandate for growth, which, translates into, from a data perspective, is I need to bring in sales data. I need to bring in other components that are maybe non-marketing related. I may need to bring in data from finance. I may need to bring in things that don't necessarily have that marketing taxonomy attached to it, but I want to mix and blend it with my marketing data, correlate it, run analytics on it. So Light Connect was developed for marketers to be able to go in, basically same kind of style where I can go and pick a file, right? It'll then analyze that data, understand what it means, understand what's in the file, how the relationships within that file sort of interact with each other, does a similar sort of significance algorithm across what it's discovered is in here in terms of metrics and dimensions, and how they sort of interact with each other. And then I can go ahead and create a Light Connect connection to that data, and it'll automatically create for me an expert dashboard as well that I can then go in and customize as well as design against. And we'll use that opportunity to look at how we do that with some additional AI on top of that for design as well before we conclude. So this will go in, it usually takes about a minute or so. And then, what it will do is generate a dashboard like this, where, in this case, it's sales data. It'll automatically create these visualizations for me in terms of my high-level KPIs, some different breakouts, right? Some different breakouts down here and so forth, complete with different measurements and dimensions that I can, easily drill into and segment by. And basically does all the heavy lifting of creating my V1 dashboard, right, of how I want to look at this data. And then I can, go forward and mix it with other marketing data that I have. And the AI is, basically now played the role of create the dashboard for me, right, in the first place. Taking it a step further, it can then go in with our new Insta brand, go in there as well and give me different design options, right, based on the colors of our branding, right, our different, colors within our logo and so forth, and actually do, image analysis on that to understand what's part of our branding, right, so I can very easily create something that is aesthetically pleasing and on brand, right, for my users to drive engagement and adoption. Very easy to add in things like this, background images, control all the different colors as well. But that gives us now the capability to instantaneously present data, visualize it, get control over the design of it in a way that's almost as easy as doing a Squarespace or a Wix site or something like that. And in the case of drag and dropping your logo is even easier than that for the design. The last thing I'll mention is in a similar vein to that around testing and learning new channels. So one of the pieces of feedback that we heard from a lot of our marketers is we want to do more testing and learning. We feel like we don't do enough of it. We're not taking advantage of that Marketing 7000 list as much as maybe we could. Are there ways that Datorama can just get us equipped with the ways to look at this data coming from new data sources? And kind of in that question was the implicit sort of request, could you give us expertise about how to measure, let's say, YouTube insights, or maybe any of these other different data sources, Seismic, MailChimp, Trade Desk, whatever it may be. Can you guys set us up with, a view that right out of the gate allows us to measure and optimize a new channel, a new tool, with a lot of expertise. And so that's another one of the areas sort of at the analytics layer connected with, the data layer that we're bringing in as well. Analyzing, I think we're seeing about 500,000, data streams on a daily basis now from 2,000 plus different data sources. And, as time goes on and more marketers use more data, the system just gets smarter and smarter about ways that it can help you basically spend your time, understanding what the data means, making decisions against it, being more proactive at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I guess that brings me to one final question I'll throw over at you, which gets into insight at scale, basically, but also touches on some privacy issues and proprietary subject areas. Namely, do you in your contract with users allow them to opt in or opt out of data aggregation or insight aggregation, such that they can pull, kind of like Apple does when you set up your phone, it asks you, are you willing to send data to developers? Is that something you guys do in order to be able to analyze, as you suggest, YouTube data at scale or Facebook data at scale across all the different people who are using your technology? How does that work, and is that even a big of an issue, or what do you think?
Yeah, so there's kind of two different levels of that question, right? So on the one hand, you could be looking at data in terms of like benchmarking, right? And that would be more specifically getting into clients' actual data. We're not doing that level today for those reasons of privacy, right? So we're not saying, your YouTube Insight KPI should be X based on all customers. In fact, these benchmarks here are based on your own historical data, right? So that's all within sort of the accepted norms of privacy, what we would expect. What we do look at in terms of, cross the customer base are, sort of more objective things. How do people map data together? What types of KPIs do they use? Things that don't necessarily get into the actual granularity of the data itself, but how people actually kind of look at the data being used, as an asset for them in terms of KPIs and classifications, things like that. We're certainly open to those conversations. I mean, we go through all those sort of T's and C's with all of our customers and make sure that everyone's happy. But I would say, our customers really recognize the value of working within a community of marketers like them as being a strategic advantage. And in fact, even outside of the AI and all the technology, I mean, I think one of the big drivers that we see at Datorama, as well as I think a lot of other types of marketing companies today that have a similar marketing focus is, marketers want to work together, right? There's a sort of co-opetition there. Whether it's leveraging AI learnings or it's, having communities to interact with other marketers, right, across, organizational lines for ideas, suggestions, learnings, all that stuff. So, it really actually becomes, I think, one of the key differentiators of working with a marketing-specific partner in, a pretty complicated data space. You're going to wind up working with somebody that is evolving solutions specifically for the challenges that you face as a marketer.
Wow, this is just fantastic stuff. Well, I have to say this has been a wonderful demo. I'm really impressed with what you guys have pulled together. And like I say, I understand the challenges of trying to integrate data, and the old school way of doing it is it's simply not going to be able to deliver with the heterogeneity, the complexity, the speed, the velocity, all these different things. It's just not going to work. So I think you guys are onto something here, and you're paving a way for the future marketer to really get their hands on all the data they need and make smart decisions, right?
That's right. And, if anybody here on the, watching today wants to get in touch and just have a chat about sort of what's going on your side, what's sort of, top of mind, how we may be able to help, certainly reach out to us. You can find us at datorama.com. You can find us on social at Datorama. It's Datorama with an O, D-A-T-O-R-A-M-A. We'd be happy to chat with you about, ways we might be able to help.
Sounds great. Once again, we've been talking to Jay Wilder of Datorama. Check him out online, folks. Great stuff, Jay. And with that, we'll conclude this particular demo. We'll talk to you next time, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having us.
Hey, you bet. Take care.